Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining our webinar this afternoon. We will be starting in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us. Do write in chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to hear from you. I'm just sharing our mission as a company here. But just wanted to remind you of also some of the housekeeping we are today. The event will be recorded, and any the people that can't attend will be able to have the link, as well as those that also did attend. And want to make you familiar with the functions we're using today, the Q&A and the chat bots. I would say just with the chat bots, make sure you put your address it to everyone. That way everyone can see the messages. And also, if you do have a question, we encourage you to put that in the Q&A. We are expecting quite a high number in today's webinar, so we'll try and do our best to answer every question. But if you can add them to the Q&A, we can manage them more effectively. As I said, we will be starting in just a few minutes' time, but I would say just use the chat function. As I said, tell us where you're joining us from today. We will be sending a follow-up email in the coming days, just thanking you for attending and for those that didn't attend. But this will also include any links mentioned today, the presentation, if there is one, and also the recording. If you do have any questions, feel free to go on any of our websites and we can follow up from you from there. As I said, we will be starting at 4 o'clock, so we've just got a couple of minutes before we start. I am going to just stop sharing for the moment. And I can see we've got lots of people joining us from all over the country, so welcome. Just a reminder that if you haven't done so already, there's a little box that says to, next to there's a drop-down menu. If you want to change that to everyone, unfortunately it defaults to hosts and panelists. It'd be great if you could change that. I can see we have also some international guests joining us today, so welcome, lovely to speak to you. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague today, Andy Small, who's going to introduce you to the rest of the group.
Thank you, Terry. That's great, and hopefully you can also now see my screen as well. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this afternoon's session. My name is Andy Small. I'm a former teacher who led on maths in schools in the South Coast, for 16 years. I now support educational settings in this country, but also across the world in my role as a maths specialist at Renaissance Global. I'm really pleased this afternoon to be joined by colleagues from the National Numeracy charity, Beth and Paul. And yeah, warm welcome to you both. To say, colleagues from National Numeracy, which is an independent charity established in 2012 with the aim to help raise low levels of numeracy among both adults and children, and also, of course, to promote the importance of everyday maths skills. Very, very close to my heart indeed. We are, of course, hosting this as Renaissance, founded by a Wisconsin couple, Judy and Terry Paul, in 1986. Renaissance has been established in the UK since 1999. We have a presence in over 50,000 schools worldwide, in more than 90 countries, helping to promote that love of learning that was very much the Paul's initial hope when they created their very first learning resource all those years ago. I am going to stop sharing because I know that Beth, you have some slides that you may wish to share. And I guess my first question, really, and I'll come to you first, I think, Beth, is how did you each become involved in the charity?
Thanks, Andy. So I've been with National Numeracy for about 3 years now. Similarly to yourself, my background is also as a primary school teacher. I was working as a maths specialist and leading English as well. And then when I joined National Numeracy, I started by developing and leading our training team. So I was responsible for delivering all of our training courses to our numeracy champions and directly to our beneficiaries as well. And now I'm the Schools and Families Programme Manager, and I lead on our work to build number confident communities in primary schools all across the UK. And it's really lovely to be here today. Thank you for having us.
Amazing. Well, I'm really pleased that you've joined. Thank you for your time. Paul, how about you?
Hi, Andy. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Paul Milner, the Programs Director, so I oversee all the work we do to improve number confidence and numeracy skills across the UK. I've got a maths degree, but I feel like I didn't use it at the time. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I went and worked in record shops, and then ended up working in music retail for decades, actually, like Virgin and Our Price, if you remember them.
Uh-huh.
And all the way right from the first day on the shop floor, actually, I noticed stuff about maths and numeracy. That was in the days where you had to work out change and stuff. So I noticed my colleagues in the shops feeling a lack of confidence, and I just kept sort of noticing it all the way through, right up to when I was in the boardroom and budgets had come out, and you could tell that quite a chunk of people in the room weren't really confident with the numbers or they were avoiding it. It just always interested me. And then that industry, it all crashed. Like our price closed, Virgin eventually closed, and I had to sort of change career. And that was luckily for me, that was the exact moment that National Numeracy formed. And we're advertising somebody who had maths background, project management experience, and it just suited me fine. So that was 12 years ago this week, actually, I joined.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. And we're all glad you did, I think. So, Paul, continuing that theme then, what did you see and what are the issues now with numeracy in the UK?
Well, we've Skills for Life survey, which I think was 2011, that showed that 49% of working age adults in England had low numeracy skills. And by low numeracy skills, I mean entry-level skills, sort of primary school levels of numeracy. There was actually a survey done just before Christmas by OECD, their PIAC survey, which is an international survey. Now, that showed that as of last year, it was 52% of adults in England. Again, it was just England, it wasn't the whole of the UK, are at entry levels or primary school levels. So it's kind of a big issue that isn't talked about that often. But the real thing is so what? It's not just that lots of people aren't that good, confident with maths. What does that actually mean? And I think the place for national numeracy is it means it can really affect people's lives. It can reduce chances of getting a job, can reduce chances of earning more money when you do get a job, makes you more likely to get into debt, and even correlates very strongly with poor health outcomes. And it starts quite early. By age 11, a disadvantaged child is on average about 10 months behind their richer peers in maths. And that gap's the highest now than it has been since 2012. We did a study of a group of trainee teachers, and 43% of them lacked confidence with maths or math skills or both. Almost a quarter of parents or carers say that having to help with their children's maths homework makes them feel really anxious. And there's also this thing about a negative culture in the UK, which creates a kind of vicious circle, like almost an intergenerational cycle. And parents or carers who received negative comments about maths from their parents when they were growing up, they're much more likely to pass on the same attitudes down to their children. So it's a big issue that we don't talk about too often publicly, and it's self-perpetuating unless we intervene with it.
100% recognize that from my own experience, and Renaissance conducted some research last year as well. Our careful calculation report is available on the website, and that correlates exactly almost with what you said there. I think we found 40% of teachers of mathematics were not confident solving a maths problem in front of their own classes, which pretty much exactly matches the numbers you found. So also tell us more about national numeracy then, and the role it has to play.
Yeah, so as you said, independent charity, formed 2012. We cover the whole of the UK, and it's a mission to empower people to thrive by using numeracy to open up opportunities, basically. And we try and work with the communities where the need is greatest. And within those, we try and work with the schools or the locations where the need is greatest. We work with educators, we work with employers, community groups, and the government as well. We work directly with beneficiaries, but we also work to upskill people to support their colleagues, to support their customers, or to support adults in the community. So that's a kind of mentor model that we developed. And we try and focus on, actually, in the early days, it was a lot about skills and a bit about confidence. It's gradually moved to being mostly about confidence because we've discovered that that's the element that's missing. That's the blocker for people. And we focus on growth mindset, meaning trying to encourage people to understand that they can, and this is adults, they can improve their skills, because there's a tendency for people to think they're just not maths people. They're sort of, their abilities are fixed and that's it. So we try and open that up into a growth mindset. We encourage positive attitudes, and we try and get adults to take the first steps to improving their skills rather than just avoiding it.
Brilliant. Amazing. Love that. Thank you, Paul. And Beth, I know that you're very much involved in schools in the UK. Can you talk a bit about how the charity supports teachers and other educators in schools?
Yeah, definitely. So at National Numeracy, we've been working with primary schools for over a decade. Our real focus has been on improving parental engagement, particularly for maths in primary schools. So one of the biggest things we've done is we developed Family Maths Toolkit for primary age children, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but it's a set of activities for families to do at home that are all about encouraging those positive maths conversations together. Over the years, we've run a number of parental engagement programs where we've supported schools for one academic year. And within that, we introduced some parent workshops called Help Your Child Love Maths. This is where we'd look at our top tips for supporting children to feel better about maths. And then it's a way for parents to get involved no matter what their confidence level is or their skills level in maths. So last academic year was our final year of the parental engagement programme. We supported 26 schools across 4 different geographical areas of the UK, and it was really successful. We reached over 1,000 children and 500 parents and carers through the programme. So then in September last year, we launched our brand new Schools and Families programme, and I'm going to leave it there because we're going to talk about that in much more detail later on.
A little teaser. Thank you, Beth. Brill. Now, Paul, you mentioned a moment ago confidence, and I mean the issue of maths anxiety is huge in schools at the moment. Can you help us sort of define that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We had a chat yesterday actually with Dr. Tom Hunt, who's an expert in maths anxiety at University of Derby, who's really good chap to talk to about this, and he provided these 3 definitions. The bottom one is he's the Hunt, and that's 2025 definition there. I mean, it's having a bad feeling about anything to do with maths, or even numbers or data can induce this, like a percentage sign or something. I quite like Tom's one at the bottom, a negative response to a person's previous, current, or anticipated experience of maths. So it's feeling bad. It might be because something bad happened at school or whatever. It might be because you're in the middle of a situation right there and then grappling with something, or it might just be the idea, oh, I'm going to a job interview, there might be a numeracy test. So it's past, present, and future, but it's basically a negative feeling that can inhibit your ability to use maths usefully.
Sure. And then that, well, I mean, I know that impacts massively on young people in schools. Like what is the impact?
Yeah, actually, more than a third of 15 to 24-year-olds feel anxious about maths in the UK. A quarter of parents don't feel confident teaching their children basic maths, and women are twice as likely to be anxious about maths as men. Now they're stats from Tom again, but actually they exactly match our stats from our work. So that's, you know, around a third of people really feel anxious about maths. quarter of parents don't feel confident. And this thing about women being twice as anxious or half as confident, that is consistent across all age groups from all our work. In terms of in school, you potentially get this cycle. Again, this is from Dr. Tom Hunt, where if somebody starts to feel they're not doing very well at maths, then they can feel bad about that, feel negative. That can then mean they might avoid maths, which then means they're less likely to do the preparation needed, which then might affect their performance round and round. And it is a pretty negative cycle that can flow right through to GCSE, and then of course the people who are less confident are likely to end up in that third of people who don't get the pass.
Yeah, of course, it is that vicious cycle, and it's understandable. Any sort of negative emotion or experience is going to lead someone to be potentially more avoidant. Now, at Renaissance, we work with the Dyscalculia Network as well, and the fantastic work they do. We're sponsoring their Changemakers event for educators at Dyscalculia Day this year. It's easy, I think, for people to sometimes confuse maths anxiety with sort of math specific challenges or dyscalculia. So how are the things different?
Yeah, I think I would say that, well, dyscalculia is a learning difficulty. I think maths anxiety is almost the effect on your life. The symptom is you're anxious about maths, but there could be many different reasons for that, and dyscalculia is one of them. So dyscalculia is a learning difficulty that makes it hard to understand, learn, or use maths. It's estimated it's about 6% of the population. That's about 1 in every 17 people is likely to have dyscalculia. It particularly makes learning arithmetic harder, shall we say, and things like recognizing numbers, recognizing that a number symbol is the same as a word that represents a number, putting things in order, knowing that 9 is 9 ones, it's also 3 threes, and holding that information. Counting backwards is one that's used in assessments, I think. Estimating is harder, and then place value is harder. So they're the things that tend to come with dyscalculia. It's again, people with dyscalculia can improve. It just may be slower and may need particular support, but it tends to manifest in things like making it harder to recall pin numbers, manage time, plan journeys, follow directions. Clock faces can be very difficult. Driving at the right speed. It's not funny actually, is it? Telling if one amount is greater than another, and judging distances, things like that. So it can have a very definite effect.
Yeah, huge impact, and in its own right, a sort of a subset of math specific learning difficulties, of course. And I think that it's very, very, very clear to me that people who may experience aspects of dyscalculia are far more likely to be anxious about mathematics. Just because someone is math anxious doesn't necessarily mean they will experience dyscalculia. But we've discussed some of that before. What other causes might there be then for maths anxiety specifically?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess we could say that we said earlier on around a third of people lack confidence. Not all of those you could class as maths anxiety, but a good proportion would have. And the biggest reason we found is something negative at school, like not getting your GCSE or being told you're just not a maths person. You're better off with English or whatever it is. That kind of just feeling that you're being that's you. You're set. You're not a maths person.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest one. Lack of support at home can affect this, especially at an early age. Dyscalculia is a reason, but then so is dyslexia, ADHD. Dyslexia, maths isn't just numbers, is it? It's normally framed in sentences and language. So
yeah.
So there's a whole raft of reasons, and they're not all discrete and separate either, you know,
Right.
not all standing in separate areas of the room. Many of them overlap. So it's a big melange of reasons for not feeling confident.
Yeah, of course. And actually, you mentioned that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that dyscalculia is very much co-occurring with other specific learning
Yes.
difficulties. And of course, yeah, maths anxiety is going to be probably the result of a whole series of things. So how do we overcome it? How do we move forward from that point of feeling anxious about numbers and about maths?
Yeah, so there are ways. I mean, Tom's done a lot of work, Dr. Tom Hunt, with maths anxiety in children at school, and he's got various strategies. We do quite a lot of work with adults who typically don't talk about it actually, um, and hence the first one uh, is to get people talking about it. And
Yeah.
we do workshops. We do confidence with numbers workshops. We train numeracy champions to support other adults. And the thing we noticed really clearly, really early on is get people talking about it in a small group. Get people hearing that someone else feels the same. In fact, everyone in the group feels the same for different reasons, and that can cause a real light bulb moment, you know, because people will avoid talking about this and hence will feel quite isolated about it.
Mhm.
And people go out of the way to hide it, you know. So actually the idea that they can start talking about it and it's not shameful and actually hear that other people in the room saying the same thing and also actually hear that it's a prevalent issue. It's not, you know,
Mm.
they're not this sort of hidden minority. It's actually a lot of, it's half, potentially up to half the country in one
Right.
way or another. So get people talking about it and talk to them in a supportive way. Challenge your own beliefs. That means really back to the growth mindset thing. If you feel like you're not a maths person, just think about that, you know, because in terms of adults can learn to dance or drive a car or play a musical instrument. Adults can improve their maths, you know, but for some reason with maths, and I think it's partly back to this right or wrong thing in through school, you know, you either get it right or you get it wrong, but there is a feeling that you can't because your abilities are fixed. So it's great to challenge that. Try not to compare yourself with others. Yes, there's people who are much faster at maths, you know, people who enjoy it, think it's fun, all that, but it's not about them. It's about you being confident in the bits you need, you know. And unfortunately, there are several bits of basic maths that we do all need. You know, it is helpful to understand what a percentage is. You know, you don't have to do advanced, you know, algebra or something, but there are things we all do need. Reduce pressure. It's absolutely, it's not about being fast. At work, yes, you do need basic maths at work, but I can't, you're not under time pressure. You know, there's always time to do it the way you find, even if it's Googling the answer and then just having a look at that. If that's, to me, that's numerate behavior. You know,
100%.
choose the method that works for you. Take your time. There's no pressure here. Set realistic goals. Bite size approaches is very good, both for learning or just anything really. Just take it one step at a time. Take it slowly. Normalize struggle. I think that means it does. If you're learning something, then you're going to make mistakes. That doesn't mean you're no good at maths. It means you're learning, and that's what learning feels like. You know, if you're playing a video game, you keep failing, don't you, and dying, and you pick yourself up and carry on. But for some reason with maths, if people get it wrong, it can be, oh no, I told you I couldn't do this. So make it feel normal to struggle. Encourage growth mindset. Take it slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really pleased you mentioned the concept of Googling, and I think I remember back to some of my own experiences as a student in schools, and maths could sometimes be quite abstract. I'm really pleased that now a lot of the sort of mastery approaches and Singaporean maths approaches bring in concrete materials and specific resources. I mean, there are some fantastic resources out there specifically for people who find maths a bit of a struggle. So that's not cheating. I think is one of the big things that I would say. It's in fact
No,
it's sensible. We would
totally.
always use some scaffolding to help us with challenging things.
Yeah, totally. To me, that's numeracy. Knowing what you're trying to
Absolutely.
find out, turn that into some kind of question, find a tool to do it, get an answer out, check whether that looks like it might be right. That's numeric behavior, I think.
Absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. Thank you, Paul. Beth, I'd like to come to you now. And Paul mentioned the sort of negative school experiences and how they can impact. And you're going to tell us a bit more about the Schools and Families program, right?
Yes, definitely. So it's a really exciting time for us. In September, we launched this brand new groundbreaking Schools and Families program. So what we've done is we've taken all of the experience and the lessons we've learned that we previously had from supporting schools with parental engagement. We've taken everything we've learned from working with adults to improve their number confidence and skills, as well as what we know about targeting the areas of the UK with the greatest numeracy need. And so we've built this new high impact programme that is a whole school approach. It's all about helping the whole community. So the educators, the families, the children, to help them overcome any anxieties they have. So every part of the community can better engage with numeracy learning. And so this approach really has dual benefits. So we look at being able to improve children's numeracy while also being able to increase the confidence of the adults who support them as well.
Real. And so does the program have specific aims?
Absolutely. So we work with schools for 1 to 2 years, and these are the key aims that we see in that time. So in terms of pupils, we want to increase their confidence with numbers, their positive feelings about maths, and that awareness of the value of maths outside of the classroom. So children aren't leaving school saying, oh, I don't need maths, I'm never going to use that again. Really making them understand, well, what is the value? Why do I need this? We work with parents, carers, staff, and that does include all support staff as well, to improve their confidence in supporting children with maths at whatever age those children are. And finally, a really fundamental idea for us is this idea of legacy and sustainability, and it's absolutely key to the programme. We want to make sure that schools have lasting approaches, strategies, and resources that means that they can continue to implement everything they learn from us once the programme has finished.
Okay, so can you give us examples of what that looks like then? Like what happens?
Yeah, definitely. So over a minimum of 1 year, schools get a full package of support. So thinking about training, it begins with our CPD accredited numeracy champions online training, and this is for up to 3 members of staff who then go on to lead the programme in their school. Alongside that, we've got additional CPD through the year, including looking at parental engagement and also helping individuals to address their own number confidence to support them at work. And both of these are available to all members of staff as part of the programme. As I touched on before, we've got our Family Maths Toolkit activities. So all schools use these as an alternative to maths homework, and all of the pupils receive a National Numeracy scrapbook for these activities to be completed in. Staff, parents and carers have access to the National Numeracy Challenge. This is our online learning platform that helps adults to improve their confidence and skills with numeracy. The numeracy champions that we train at the start of the programme, they go on to deliver Help Your Child Love Maths workshops to parents and carers. These are 1-hour attitudinal workshops, and we give all of the resources and materials that champions would need to deliver this. Where available, we also have our incredible volunteers who visit participating schools, and they talk about maths in adult life, thinking about their own maths journey and then how maths is incorporated into their jobs and in their hobbies as well. We've got campaigns for schools to take part in, and we also have some expert-led webinars as well on topics like maths anxiety and dyscalculia for schools to get some added benefit from. And alongside all of this, schools are supported by us at National Numeracy throughout, with an online resource hub, a dedicated email address to get in touch with, and then regular forums as well, so they can kind of share those successes and challenges with other participating schools as well.
Oh, that's quite a holistic program. I know you're going to go on to talk a bit more about the Family Maths Toolkit. I'm sure there are people here who heard the idea that it would potentially be an alternative to homework that is pricked up. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a collection of nearly 250 everyday maths activities, and it's purposely designed for families to complete at home. So instead of your traditional page of calculations, these are open-ended activities that really focus on problem solving and reasoning. So parents and carers don't need any special maths knowledge to do these or any equipment. They're all linked to maths in everyday life, cultural events, seasonal events. The activities are suitable for ages 4 to 11. There's an activity pack for each year group that is completely free for anybody to download. There's a QR code there that you can scan to be able to access it, but I will also pop a link in the chat, so then and I'll make sure I do, as you said earlier, to put it to everyone, that then you can go in and anybody can download the Family Maths Toolkit activities. But yeah, there's so many in there. They're really open. There's a great space for parents and children to kind of write some comments in there about how they find the activity, and that gives schools some really good insight into actually how they found that activity at home.
Amazing. Well, that's really, really good. You talked about the aims of the Schools and Families Programme. What would you expect as the outcomes for young people or for the schools, parents perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of beyond those stated aims that we talked about, these are some of those other anticipated outcomes. So we expect that staff, parents and pupils all to feel more confident with numbers and have much more of an awareness of the value of maths outside of the classroom. Staff will be able to engage parents more and better in their child's maths learning, and parents will have those practical ideas of what they can actually do to support their children. Even if, they're someone that struggles with maths anxiety, they don't feel confident in their level of math skills, we try to equip parents with, well, what can you do no matter what is still going to be beneficial for your children.
That's great. And actually the work that was done around Number Confidence Week, we were sharing some things internally at Renaissance around this. So I've experienced firsthand how sort of greater awareness of numeracy and wider discussion about it. It's really quite powerful. Got a lot of positive comments about that. That's amazing. So what about the commitment then from schools? What does that look like?
Yeah, this is really, really important. And when we designed the programme, we really did keep, teachers' capacity and teachers' workload, as a top priority for us. So schools work with us for a minimum of a year. And the real explicit time commitment kind of comes through the training. So the initial training is our online numeracy champions training. This is 2 lots of 2 hours, all online. And we always have multiple options for each session. So schools have a lot of flexibility in terms of when the staff members can attend. The project lead, who's normally the maths lead, is also expected to attend a termly 1-hour forum online. So these are 3 times a year. We give all of the dates out right at the beginning of the programme, so nothing is kind of a short notice. Schools can really plan their capacity around it. We do also have those webinars. All staff are invited to these, but we do also record them as well. So they're there for staff to be able to access at a later date. Outside of kind of those real core time commitments, the other big activities in the programme are, we expect the schools to deliver at least one Help Your Child Love Maths workshop to parents and carers. And as I said, we give them all of the materials and guidance to be able to do that. We want them to use the Family Maths Toolkit activities and scrapbooks with their pupils. And then we ask the project lead to complete a termly and then an end of year survey as well, to just help us collect that activity and impact data through the project.
Cool. And so what is the sort of long lasting effect then of the programme?
So like we kind of mentioned already, this idea of legacy and sustainability is a really core principle of the programme. So we've made sure that many of the programme activities can be continued independently by the schools after the programme ends. And this would be led by the trained numeracy champions. So this can be continuing to use the Family Maths Toolkit activities, running the workshops for parents and carers, using the parental engagement strategies that they've learned, using the National Numeracy Challenge with staff and parents, taking part in our campaigns, using the Resource Hub, and they'd still be able to access our expert-led webinars. It is
Awesome.
something that they can continue to do after the programme.
Yeah, great. That long-lasting impact. Okay, so there was some reference to some of the time commitment and things like that. What would it look like then in terms of rollout?
So we recruit schools to the programme on a rolling basis.
Mm-hmm.
So schools join in either September, January or April each year. There's no cost to the actual school to get involved. So we're currently in a position where we're recruiting schools to join the programme to start in April 2025 for a year. We'll talk shortly about, how schools can apply for that. In terms of then the next step, so next week we'll be contacting successful schools. Other schools will join a waiting list because we'll be, again, running the programme from September as well, so they'll be able to join in the future. The schools that are taking part will train their 3 members of staff as numeracy champions in March, and we've already got some dates sorted for that. There's like 4 different options, so there's plenty of flexibility. And then the schools will begin their full programme of activity in April following the Easter break.
Amazing. Now I think Terry is going to pop up on the screen a poll. So if there are, and we've got over 100 people joining us, and I know many others who will be in receipt of the recording who registered. But if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the Schools and Families programme, then there should be a poll pop up on screen. Likewise, if you want to hear anything specific to how Renaissance can help with maths education in schools, there should be that facility as well. But Beth, maybe you're able to tell us a little bit more about exactly what schools should do to get involved.
Yeah, definitely. So the applications are open now for schools to join the primary schools to join the programme in April 2025. What I'll do is I'll put a link to the application form in the chat. I've also put a link there to our waiting list. So if your school isn't necessarily interested at joining it at this point, but you would be in the future, you can join the waiting list. We welcome applications from schools all across the UK, but for our current cohort, we are especially interested in schools from the Northwest, including Greater Manchester, the East Midlands and London. But yeah, the application form is there. There's also a waiting list if you're not quite interested yet, but maybe you want to be considered for the next academic year.
Amazing. Well, thank you both for the insight. That's been really, really useful in the work that National Numeracy do. As I say, I've seen firsthand how impactful that can be, even just on a relatively small scale. But I know that across the country you're doing some great work. I also know that impact is kind of lifelong, insofar as you're helping very young learners, but also, more experienced, let's say, people in the community. We have had a question asking whether the programme is specifically aimed at primary schools at the moment, and families of children of that age, or whether there is potential for sort of involvement of some of our secondary colleagues as well.
So currently the programme is open to primary schools, but that does include standalone infant and junior schools as well. Yeah. And we do actually have a few middle schools taking part as well with their years 5 and 6 as well.
That's great to know. And there's of course plenty of other resources available that on the website and supporting documentation and things that may well be appropriate to other audiences, of course. I'm not sure whether we have other questions. If anybody does have any more any more questions they'd like to pop in the Q&A, please do. I'm going to check the chat as well, but I don't think that we've got much in there other than sort of we'll be sharing content. So absolutely we'll share the content of the presentation and the webinar recording itself with everybody who's joined us today, and in fact those who have registered but not been able to join us live. There was a comment also from Tessa around how anxiety isn't necessarily specific to maths in this sort of area, but actually wider STEM subjects as well. Physics and chemistry were mentioned explicitly, and the perceptions of young people there. I think that's a really relevant comment. Thank you for that. And Nicole has a question as well. Do we run this as a full maths program, or is it integrated into our current curriculum?
It can be absolutely integrated into your current curriculum. So we don't get involved with the maths that the teachers teach in the classroom in your day-to-day lessons. The teachers are the full experts in that. We provide, as you pointed out earlier, a holistic kind of wraparound to what's already happening in the classroom to really improve those attitudes for all of the community.
Yeah, so it's additional, isn't it? It's great. I don't know where Sarah is joining us from. Obviously very interested, but wonders whether schools have to be in the UK to apply. I know that this is very much a national numeracy charity within the context of our shores. It's great that we've got interest from elsewhere in the world. And as I said, I'm sure that you'd welcome website visits, and I'm sure there's lots that can be gained from that. But in terms of the programme, just to clarify, Beth, this is for UK schools only, right?
Yes, that is correct. But yeah, there's lots of things on our website that anybody can have a look at. Lots of good guidance and advice there.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think we've covered. Oh, there might just be one more late entry. Oh no, it's just a thank you. Not at all. Thank you, Sarah. Fab. Well, I think we pause it there. Thank you so much, both of you, for your insight. And sort of on behalf of every maths educator in the country, I suspect, if I can speak for them, thank you for all the work you're doing. It's so important. And there are comments coming in about how informative and useful this session has been. Absolutely would encourage people to engage with the website content and the links that Beth has shared. We will share those further in the follow-up email that you'll receive in the coming days. And if you do want to reach out to us, then please do that in response to that email that goes out. But otherwise, thank you very much. If you're in the UK, have a good evening. If you're elsewhere in the world, whatever time it is, have a good day, good night. And again, Beth and Paul, thank you very much for your insights and for your time.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you coming today. I want to take the opportunity just to thank our guests and thank you everyone for attending today. If you don't know how to leave, there's a little leave button at the bottom. So please do use that. I will be closing the session in just 1 minute's time. But thank you all very much for attending and thank you for your time.